This is a true story. 4 divers finished their dive underwater, but when they returned to the boat, they realized one person was missing. They quickly called for help. However, when the rescue team found the missing diver, they made a chilling discovery. A knife was lodged in his chest. How could someone disappear underwater and end up stabbed? This incident took place on the night of September 10th, 2002 in Croatia. 5 people had decided to go diving together for fun. Someone mentioned an underwater cave, but one of them refused, saying it was too dangerous. At around 9 p.m., the other 4 put on their diving gear and entered the sea. They soon found the cave entrance. The cave was divided into 4 sections. The entrance, known as the chimney, due to its shape, a complex area called the passage, the deep cave below, and another shallow section. As they descended, they realized the cave was much larger and deeper than they had expected. Midway down, they decided to abandon the exploration, realizing their equipment was unsuitable for such a deep dive. They exchanged hand signals and returned the way they came. Back in the open water, they separated briefly to explore before their oxygen ran low. One by one, they returned to the boat. That's when they noticed something was wrong. Kukic hadn't surfaced. His oxygen tank should have run out by now. They immediately suited up with fresh tanks and dove back down. First, they searched around the cave entrance, finding nothing. They returned to the boat, grabbed a guideline, and re-entered the cave, suspecting that Kukic had gone back inside alone. With the guide rope, they wouldn't get lost. The shallow cave area was massive and pitch black, making it difficult to search. After finding no trace of him, they pushed deeper into the cave. But as they entered the passage leading to the deep cave, they felt a chill. The narrow, maze-like tunnels, combined with the extreme depth, made the situation increasingly dangerous. Their oxygen was running low. Realizing the risk, they called for emergency rescue. When the police arrived, things took a turn for the worse. The 2 officers who responded seemed inexperienced. They didn't even have proper diving gear and had to borrow equipment from the divers. The group waited on the boat while the officers searched. An hour later, one officer returned with bad news. They hadn't found Kukic, and worse, he had surfaced too quickly, showing signs of decompression sickness. He was sent to the hospital immediately. The second officer still hadn't surfaced. Judging by the duration of his oxygen supply, it became clear that he was missing. The rescue team had now lost another diver. The police sent another rescue team. Eventually, they found the missing officer in the shallow cave area, far from the guideline. His rope had detached, leaving him disoriented, and he ran out of air. He didn't survive. Then, they finally found Kukic. His body was in the deepest part of the cave, but the most shocking detail? A knife was embedded in his chest. The police immediately arrested the 4 divers who had been with him. Each was interrogated separately and given a lie detector test. 2 of them showed abnormal nervous reactions when asked certain questions, but a polygraph alone isn't proof of guilt. Investigators then analyzed the dive recorders, which track real-time depth data. The data revealed that Kukic had continued diving deeper after his friends surfaced. At 40 meters, he slowed down, searching for the path to the deep cave. He reached the deepest section, but then something strange happened. At 35 meters, he stayed completely still for half an hour. His movements suggested he was disoriented, unable to find his way out. Finally, after 10 more minutes at 40 meters, his movement pattern changed. He descended in a straight, uncontrolled motion. His data was drastically different from his friends. They had surfaced together. This ruled them out as suspects. What about the person who stayed on the boat? He had no dive recorder data, but an investigation found no signs of equipment use. Without a proper dive setup, it would have been impossible for him to dive deep enough to reach Kukic. Some suspected foul play. Perhaps someone tampered with the dive recorder, but forensic analysis confirmed that the device was intact and untouched. Then came the final, most chilling conclusion. The forensic report showed that the angle and depth of the knife wound were consistent with self-inflicted injuries. Trapped in the depths of the cave, running out of air, Kukic likely realized he wasn't going to make it out alive. Faced with suffocation and panic, he made a devastating decision to end his suffering on his own terms. This case remains one of the most tragic and mysterious diving incidents in history. This is a true story. 3 teenagers ventured into a cave, unaware of the danger ahead. Not long after entering, a fire broke out, blocking their way back. One of them made a desperate choice to break through the flames, as the other two watched him disappear into the fire. Out of fear, they decided to run deeper into the cave, hoping for rescue. But why did the cave suddenly catch fire after they went inside? This incident took place in the United States on July 9, 1967. On the day of the incident, a 16-year-old boy with no prior caving experience planned to explore the cave. As he and his friends approached the entrance, they crossed paths with two teenage explorers emerging from the cave. The groups exchanged glances, but said nothing. Crawling through the pipe, the boys noticed something unusual. Two lit candles left behind by the previous explorers. Without paying much attention, they stepped over them and continued inside. About 10 minutes into their journey, something felt off. The air grew thick, and an unexpected heat pressed against their skin. At first, they brushed it off as a lack of ventilation, but then a strange smell filled the cave. With no experience, they didn't recognize the danger, assuming it was harmless. However, the increasing heat and overpowering stench soon became unbearable. Disappointed, they decided to turn back. Then, through the passage ahead, they saw thick black smoke coming from the entrance. Panic set in. Rushing forward, they realized the unthinkable. The only way out was engulfed in flames. The cave was getting hotter. The toxic smoke burned their lungs. Their eyes stung, making it almost impossible to see. One of the boys, Charles, was growing desperate. He turned to his friends. "I can't just sit here and wait. I'd rather take my chances and run through the fire." But the others tried to stop him. The pipe was nearly 50 meters long, and if the entire passage was on fire, crawling through would be nearly impossible. For a moment, Charles hesitated. Then, with a deep breath, he made his choice. He pushed forward, enduring searing pain as flames engulfed him. His screams echoed through the cave. By the time firefighters arrived, they saw Charles at the cave's entrance, collapsed, screaming in agony. He had made it out, but as they rushed to his side, they realized the severity of his condition. His body was covered in burns. While Charles was rushed to the hospital, firefighters worked quickly to control the blaze. Once the flames were subdued, 4 firefighters entered the cave, searching for the remaining 2 teenagers. Nearly an hour and a half later, deep inside the cave, they found them. The boys had fled from the toxic fumes, trying to escape the unbearable heat. It took 2 hours to carefully bring them out. Miraculously, they were unharmed. But Charles wasn't as fortunate. Over 59% of his body had suffered second and third-degree burns. Despite receiving medical treatment, he succumbed to his injuries 3 days later, on July 12th. Investigators determined the cause of the fire. During renovations, a highly flammable adhesive had been used to coat the passage. When the previous group of explorers placed candles at the entrance, one was accidentally knocked over. It ignited the adhesive, quickly spreading flames throughout the tunnel. But a mystery remained. The surviving boys insisted they never touched the candles. Charles had been crawling behind them, so they couldn't say for certain if he had. Others speculated that the fire may have started on its own, as the candles burned down. However, considering that the boys felt heat and smelled smoke within minutes of entering, the fire must have ignited before they even stepped inside. Some even believed that someone outside may have tampered with the candles after they entered. Ultimately, no evidence was found to prove what truly happened. But one thing was clear: placing candles near a hazardous, flammable space led to a deadly tragedy, a mistake that cost Charles his life.